Hi, David. Yeah, you're quite soft. Are you speaking on headphones or? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Oh, okay, perfect. All right. Maybe we'll just go with this, and then we'll just try to pump up the volume a little bit. Okay, cool. Yeah. So just very quickly, I just want to kind of see what the bias is, and should I focus more responses on? Is it kind of the commercial bit? Is it more totally commercial? And then we're talking about like FT type of audience, right? Economist type of audience. Okay, got it. Okay, all right. So I'm just gonna fly off the cuff, and then I'll use your discretionary editorial powers to coax into something good. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I think your question was which one? Yeah, it's look, it sucks is probably the right word if you take it as an absolute. But I think and also if you take it as a relative too to other ecosystems, right? So if you take a look at and just to give you some context, I mean, I worked in the UK for a long time, and I saw the scene there from when it was nothing to now lots of things, and obviously the U.S. and in San Francisco, New York. So in Asia, in many ways, is contextually sucky and absolutely sucky at the same time. However, from what I saw in London, it's one of these things that can come about very, very quickly, because it's really in terms of the academic expertise, AI and machine learning techniques have been around for a long time. And it's only been recently where we have the computing power and the amount of data that we have and the cost, right, the economic cost of playing around with that amount of data in a very kind of cheap way that I think we've had advances in AI. So the academic research has been around 50, 60 odd years. So nothing new is coming from that end, but it's really kind of the ability to play around with both the data, with the algorithms, in a much more powerful way. So that's where we see advances. So I guess to answer your question more directly, right now it's not a very good starting point, but in a very few amount of years or even months, it could really be something very interesting. There's really not that much yet, and I haven't yet seen kind of academic or economic research on the total amount of money. I think I saw an article on the number of U.S. funds or the U.S. capital devoted to AI. Um, in Asia, there's probably everyone's looking at AI to some degree, but I don't know anyone that's categorically investing in that category aggressively, other than Horizons Ventures. So if you extrapolate, if you take Horizons Ventures, take a look at all the rounds they've been in with AI, you'll probably get a pretty good sense of what the numbers are. And they contribute to about, I don't know, 70% of all investment activity in AI in Asia. There's probably two reasons why. One is domestically and just as a region, we haven't produced companies, AI machine learning companies, right? And so investors tend to invest out of their own backyard, and so therefore, because there are no AI machine learning companies, so therefore they just don't invest in them. There's just not enough companies that are there to invest in. I mean, then there's the other argument. Well, why don't they go to the UK and San Francisco or New York to invest in these companies? A lot of these companies actually are no short of capital. They are big companies. They're exciting companies. American investors get it. UK investors get it. So when Asian money goes to compete for that deal flow, it's usually not at a good leverage point. It has no inherent advantage. So those are two main reasons why you just haven't seen as much activity. Yeah, I guess there's kind of two things that we look for, right? I think if you separate out the it's funny when we first we asked the question, what do you look for in a startup, and you said AI startup. But I think you can separate it out from what is a startup and what is an AI. So when we look at early stage startups, the probably single most important thing is the two most single important things are, is this team technical, right? If you're doing something in AI machine learning, you gotta be pretty sure, God darn it, you're pretty technical. The second thing is your ability to execute. No AI startup is worth their grain of salt if they cannot fund an MVP, if they have an algorithm but they can't get data. Because if you don't have data, your algorithm is just like any other algorithm, right? You're not really training that algorithm whatsoever. And so it's your ability to execute and find data sources to be able to train your AI. That's the key part. So that's kind of what we look for in early stage teams, and I guess that covers, just early stage and early stage AI companies and what we look for. Well, I like to say that all 10 of our companies are, fulfill that criteria. That would be tremendously biased, right? So, it really, that's our criteria, and that's honestly, I would say that. But if I try to be a bit non-biased and try to answer the question, are there any other companies that are interesting? Mimenic, it does a very good job in Singapore. So it's mimetic.ai. And so there's a very similar company called X.AI in the US, which is basically a virtual assistant. You just see, I think her name, I forgot her person's name from Mimenic. But you CC that person and you add that person to the conversation or that chatbot, and then they arrange a calendar meeting for you or a meeting for you. So that team has the qualities of, I think, being execution friendly, execution oriented, but also technically competent. What else comes to mind? I think that's actually the main one. There's a few more. Kono Labs is doing something similar in Korea. But so I won't comment on that just because they're similar. But Vuno is another one. So Vuno is trying to do actually deep learning, but applied to health and science, health actually specifically, and that's spelled VUNO. They're probably likely more technical in trying to. Yeah. But no, those two companies are actually, I think, the most both technical and competent in terms of execution as well. I mean, sorry, and I neglected to say Sentient.ai is actually one of the largest AI companies and actually based out of Hong Kong, right? And they're one of the most well-funded actually AI companies out there. So those three companies, I think, inhabit those qualities that I mentioned before. It's not starting to yet. I think everyone's. I'm actually writing this article right now for Forbes, trying to just trying to come from an angle that's non-scary and informative. I think people are still trying to understand what it means, and this isn't just an APAC issue. I think it's probably a non-US issue. So European companies are doing the same. In fact, I was talking to someone from Saatchi's fund yesterday, and they're trying to figure out that as well. I think US companies are a little more poised to deal with it. I mean, you take a look at Google, Amazon, Facebook, they're all trying to move to AI first. And the other companies that are not dealing with AI are trying to implement or acquire AI companies to get better at it. So I think all companies are trying to figure a way to deal with it. I just think the US companies are a lot more ahead than the rest of the world. I think one, they're more embracing of innovation, right? Just from a cultural perspective. Two, I think, so embracing is one thing. Is just, it's just a feeling. I think they're also, American companies tend to be a little more acquisitive. So if they don't get something, they'll acquire it, and through acquisition, they'll learn about it, and they're more open to doing that versus companies from outside the U.S. are less acquisitive by nature. It's tremendously niche. Yeah, I think it's tremendously niche from a startup perspective. It's tremendously niche from a topic perspective as well. Um, but I think we have a very strong thesis that it's likely going to open up very quickly. Yeah, I mean, I had a very similar question from the MIT Technology Review as well. And I think the thing is, it's I try to be intellectually honest about it. I think it's one thing. It's an easy thing to say. Tremendous impact, awesome, great, right? So let's distill it down to actually what it means, right? I think what that statement means is you'll see it permeate in different businesses in different ways. It's a bit hard to understand what that means, but what works in APAC, right? E-commerce, for example, works in APAC. So it'll augment existing businesses. So e-commerce is big in Asia, big in Southeast Asia. So you see better prediction, better recommendations on what to buy, following up. You see better logistics, right? Cheaper logistics as well. So better prediction and optimization of different driver routes, better optimization of cargo, better optimization of rates, and then that brings down shipping rates. That makes it easier for people to get their stuff, more accuracy, and obviously kind of better optimization of drivers' utilities, right? So logistics, e-commerce. I think banks. I think Asia overall is still a pretty big kind of finance hub. And so definitely, I think you'll see portions of that. It could be, yeah, there are a couple different ways, right? One is the traditional way. So a lot of actually Asian AI has come from actually hedge funds, like machine learning guys coming out from hedge funds. And so maybe sometimes you'll see a lot more of that, machine learning guys going back to hedge funds or going back to their banks and trying to optimize trading performance. As one example, right? We're also starting. No, robo trading more as a consumer. Robo trading kind of oftentimes talks about more as a consumer facing trading thing, but this more as in kind of internal trading. But very similar concept. Yeah, basically you just set it and forget it. Yeah. And then, but you might also see stuff like you see a lot of chatbots, right? One of our companies, Claire.ai, deals with better human to kind of bank interfacing right now through kind of their internal FAQ process. So, rather than reading through a bank's FAQ or terms and conditions, you can actually chat with an interface where it feels like a real person talking to you about a bank's terms and conditions and FAQ, right? So possibly things like that and trying to make banks a little bit more human or friendly, if you will. I don't know if you, yeah. In the sense of the interface, in the sense of like having an interface that's a little bit more friendly, right? Rather than just an FAQ, which is you read, human customer reads an FAQ. It's more a human can interact with the FAQ or the terms and conditions and be able to ask. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, or personality. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are kind of, I guess, three industries that might be impacted. But you might see stuff in social media that might get impacted. In China, you see a lot of social media apps that do face augmentation, right? So you take a picture, you add kind of dog ears, you add whatever, right? That's all machine learning. That's an intense, insane a face machine learning algorithm in the background to be able to actually accurately augment those faces and store those faces, right? Oh yeah, I think I like to use it's going to be well, it will be revolutionary. You just might not see it. I mean, it's like magic, right? The whole point of it is the fact that no one will notice, right? And that's kind of what AI is. The point is no one will notice. It's so slick that no one will notice. No, unless you misconstrue it and make it negative. Okay. Okay. No worries. Okay. Cheers, David. Bye bye.